Alright guys, we've done this once before, the FICM in this truck. We replaced it with a cheap off-brand one we found to kind of prove that was the problem and not dump the money into a brand new name brand one, because they were, I don't remember, they were pretty expensive. Since then, it has kind of died. The truck's not running very good again. And we picked up it's cheaper than from Ford or some of the other people, but it's a Dorman. It is Dorman, I'm not lying, right? Yes, it's a Dorman power supply for the truck, for that fuel injection control module. I can't talk. So, just like last time, pop out the coolant tank. It's back down there somewhere. So, let's get to work on this. And I did find my tripod, so you guys can actually see this time.
Heaven just knows what it wants. Will I go back to the place where I belong?
Alright guys, went a lot smoother than the last time, probably because I know what I'm doing. Here it is out. So now it's all those perimeter bolts, and then we'll get the new piece, the new power supply in. I think it's either right there in this, I don't remember, it's in here somewhere. Get this thing popped apart, get the new power supply in, and make sense that this is actually an international part. So, let's get to that.
Everyone could break my heart, but I try my best to not fall apart. And I find it hard to let go. The memories keep me together. Gotta fight till the end, no pressure, no pressure. And I find it hard to say no to the ones who want something better.
Alright guys, so I'm going to say, if you're watching this video for an instruction on how to do this, I will link my other video where I basically did that the first time. So now, we've got this old one out, there's the new one. So there's these thermal pads in here, and one main difference between the new one and the old one, the new one came with replacement thermal pads, the old one didn't. And what tends to cause these things to fail is bad thermal pads. They get too hot and they overheat and die. And drops in voltage. They have a very specific operating range, and if it drops below that, they ain't very happy. And I'd imagine if it goes above that, they wouldn't be happy either. So we, even though this truck had a fairly new alternator on it, we put a higher output alternator because it didn't, we measured the output of the alternator, and it didn't seem to be it wasn't outputting enough. It wasn't outputting to keep that in its optimum range at idle. So I replaced this. I can't remember the specs on it. I probably mentioned it in the old video. Replaced this alternator, and this is cranking out enough amps to sustain this guy. Amps, volts, I can't remember. I think amps is the right term. I don't know. I need to learn some electrical stuff. But, so yeah, the new one comes with new thermal pads. So we'll peel these guys out, and we'll put the new ones in. And that should help with heat transfer. And I believe when we bought that guy, we kind of expected it would die. I think a lot of its reviews said it worked great until it didn't. And it did seem to help the truck out for a minute, and then it stopped helping so much. Well, not stopped helping. The truck still runs, but it wasn't running very well. So this, I'm distracted. This is actually the control module. This is just the power supply for it. So with that being said, let's get back into reinstalling stuff.
To the ones who never say never, you'll be my pleasure. I got nothing to be scared of, because where people live
So it is in, everything's buttoned back up. Sorry I stopped recording, my phone battery got low, so I plugged it in and figured same thing in reverse anyhow, so it doesn't really matter. Coolant, everything's hooked up. So I figured, now that I've done this, I'll take a minute, let's talk about this truck and what's done to it, what it is. So let's start off with what the truck actually is. This is a 2006 F350. It is a king cab long bed. So this thing's pretty big. And it is the 6-liter Power Stroke. I believe they only had the 6-liter in that year, which, until it has a problem, is a good engine. They're hard to work on, and they had quite a few known problems. If you steer around them, maintain them, and do stuff to prevent the problems, you should be good. But they are kind of a pain to work on, seeing as the front of the engine is there, and the back is way back there somewhere. So this truck is, and also this is, I believe, the stock size tire. Stock wheels, no wheels or anything. When we got it, it had taller tires. This isn't lifted or anything. We got it, it had some taller tires. They were a nice tire, but they were pretty worn out. These guys are the Goodyear Wranglers. They were a decent tire, but they wore out really fast. They don't have a lot of miles on them. We're actually right now kind of looking at replacement tires for it. These are also not very good in the snow or ice. They slide quite easy. But they're pretty good. Get you through mud and dirt and quiet on the road. But you can tell they're worn out when you had to put the truck in 4 to cross and drive up a slightly wet hill, just like grassy wet hill. So gonna need some new tires coming up soon. They're pretty slick right now. As far as modifications, there's not much. We did the blue spring mod in the fuel system. It came with an EGR delete, but in trying to troubleshoot it, we took that off and it hasn't made its way back on. Actually, I don't think we even have it anymore, but it's got an EGR now. These are new intercooler, or new charge and intercooler pipes, mostly because the old Ford ones cracked, and these are some aftermarket aluminum ones that we replaced it with. I don't know what they are, so I can't link them, but I do know the clamps they came with were crap, and we ended up putting the original Ford ones back on. We blew these lines off 4 times towing something, and we were like, okay, fine, we're just putting the Ford clamps back on. So there's the Ford clamps back on. We have the new FICM power supply, which hopefully fixes most of our problems, except the turbo-related issue. The vanes in the turbo are pitted. We know we're going to need a new one. I keep an eye out for them for a good price, but we haven't done anything about it yet. That's going to be we've had it out before, but it's not fun. It takes, all this stuff has to come off to get that turbo out. So we'll need to do a turbo. So basically it's stock. That was a really long roundabout way of saying it's pretty much stock. Oh, it does have a bulletproof diesel. It's under this toolbox here. Bulletproof diesel sand separator to separate sand out of the coolant, because these blocks from International are sand cast and don't get cleaned out very well, or for whatever reason there ends up being a lot of sand in them. So this is a bulletproof diesel thing. It just goes in the coolant line, and I don't actually know where the other side goes. Back to somewhere. Filter sand out. That probably needs to be changed, that filter. We thought about if it needs a new FICM, getting a tuned one, because these trucks are making right around 500 horse. Like the year before this, the 05 and older, I don't know how much older, I think it had over 600. They detuned them to make them more reliable, and these are still more powerful than the International variant of the engine. So we've thought about getting a tune. I think with a tune and you have to put in a EGT probe to watch your exhaust gas temperatures. You can make, I think, a pretty easy 800 with these trucks, I believe. Don't quote me on that. I haven't looked into it in a while, but I think, so we might end up doing that at some point, but pretty good rig. It drives down the road. So I guess I'll close up the hood and we'll take it out for a test drive and, see what happens. Also, I noticed while working on it, apparently at some point, I don't know if I broke it or it just broke, I probably broke it trying to get them off at one point. Probably the first time. One of the middle of the 3 connectors, one of the clips is broken and it wouldn't stay on. It stayed on, but if you put pressure on it, it popped off. So I just looped, there's a zip tie around each side of it, all the way around the FICM, and I didn't cut them off, A, because I didn't want someone to reach their hand back there and cut themselves on it, and B, because I can't find a pair of diagonal cutters, because the school shop is basically a shop, and all the tools in it are ours, but all our tools, mostly, except for the small amount I have up here, are down in the hangar, which is our personal shop, for working on the Jetta, and there's a little more room in here to work on this, so I threw it in here, and it wouldn't take a long time. So, I guess now I'll close the hood down, we'll start it up, and probably go take it for a test drive and see how it feels.